of a ratings agency as well. So if a farmer comes to you and their soil is not up to scratch, in terms of remediation for the soil to be able to get on platform or to become a supplier of carbon credits, will you help them through that process, or will you then say, come back to us when you're ready and we'll reassess your soil at that point?
Yeah, very briefly, we don't get involved in advising farmers or helping them transition. Our job is to measure what increase there is. They just nominate what they're going to do. It's up to the rural advisors, agronomists and things like that, or the elders or the nutrients or the bayers or whoever it is that traditionally deal with farmers to assist them in making that transition. Some will do it efficiently, some will do it not efficiently, some will not do it at all. If they don't do it at all, we just don't return and scan, because we bear the costs of all the soil scanning and generating the maps. Yeah, we monitor what the farmer is doing, but we don't get involved directly with it.
Great.
Thanks. Good question, Tom. Julie, your hand is up.
Yeah, look, absolutely brilliant, Ian. I've been a fan for many years, you know that. Just what is in my head is how, at the moment in Australia, we have this thing called ACCUs, which is a voluntary market for carbon credits. And with my Greening Australia board hat on, that's, and we get involved because of sequestration of carbon by planting trees. And that's the only market we can use in Australia. But with the task force overseas and what you are creating, does that mean that this voluntary market will, be surpassed by what's happening internationally?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. As you know, Julie, we're no fan of the ACCU market or the way it operates here in Australia. It's inefficient, it's highly regulated, and the price is artificially suppressed, as is the volume by the government. And so as a result, we're interested in selling to the global markets, particularly the European markets. In Canada, it's probably going to be an internal market. That seems to be what the government is mandating. So what we would offer for Australian farmers is essentially a way to access a higher price more rapidly on the global markets. I'm not quite sure what the ACCU price is at the moment. I think it's about $18 or something like that.
Yeah, $15, yeah.
$15, it's gone down again, yep. So whereas, you're looking at 30 plus euros or more, for maybe 40 euros in the European markets for quality carbon offsets. I would rather give a farmer 60% of 40 euros than 60% of $15. So it's not a very fair system here. So we just want to create an alternative. Simply, and it's up to the farmers, where they wish to work.
As long as, I'm just querying whether they can legally do that, because if farmland is in Australia, then aren't they subject to Australian laws about where the carbon is used? Like, I don't know. It's a technical question.
It's a good question, Julie. It's the answer is, if they want to operate under the Australian financial market system and the Clean Energy Regulator and the ERF and all that kind of stuff, yep, absolutely, they got no choice. If they want to grow carbon, which is what they're doing on their property, and do it under a different methodology, that's perfectly fine. It's the same way at the moment. If you're growing trees through Greening Australia, you can choose to have it certified by Gold Standard, Verra, or one of the other ones, and that's your choice, and that will allow you to sell it in different areas. So yeah,
it's an emerging market globally. That's basically the conclusion.
Yeah, it is. It's the voluntary carbon markets, which the emissions trading schemes at the moment, which is the regulated ones, they're huge. I forget exactly what they are, something like $100 billion a year or something like that. Whereas the voluntary carbon markets are currently under $200 million a year, but they're growing rapidly. You know, essentially at the moment, there's about 11 billion tonnes per annum of carbon being sequestered. And that needs to rise to about 40 billion. So it's got to go up by a factor of 4. That's awful. I'm talking per annum here. So that's an awful lot of carbon has got to be removed, and a lot of companies that have to transition towards net zero. So the markets are about to, you know, explode in terms of demand. And there's the price push as well as the price is going up. I mean, just as a last comment, because I have to jump on another call, but you know, the price of $15 a tonne in Australia for carbon is just so out of step with, you know, the thinking in a place like, you know, Canada, for example, where it's pushing it up to 170. New Zealand's pushing it high as well, and Europe it's high. But there's a benchmark index called the social capital cost of carbon, and that what that is reflects is every time a tonne of carbon goes up there, the actual economic impact on the planet and the people on it is what they call the social capital cost of carbon. At the moment, it's $50 US a tonne. It was just set by the Biden administration in March. Prior to that, it was previously set in 2015 at 45. So it's now $50 a tonne. So economically, it makes no sense for a carbon price to be under $50 US a tonne, because that is the direct impact of what it is. So we see that as a natural benchmark, which, you know, the world will move towards over time. And, you know, Australia will have no choice but to move along with it if it's going to keep in step with the global markets.
Thanks, Ian. That's really great. And I really appreciate your time. You know, just being in the hot seat, you know, I think it's such an important conversation to have. And, you know, we really do, you know, wish you lots of success, you know, and those in the community, you're happy for people to reach out through either the LinkedIn group, through directly, or, you know, we can ask and we'll do the introduction. Yeah.
Yep. That's great. Thank you very much, everybody. Much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you, Ian.
Yes. That's good. Bye.
And what we'll do is just let everyone know. So we've had about 8 people who, over the period of time from either the breakout rooms or here, have had to drop out and come back in. And so, there's about 8 people just saying, can you please let me back in? For some reason, Zoom doesn't let people back in after they've left after a breakout or in the breakout session. So what we're going to do here at the moment, we're going to do a breakout. We're going to break into groups of 4. And what I'd like you to discuss for about 10 minutes is who so we're talking about measures, sorry, because we've got Jan coming up as well. What is it that in what you're trying to do, you're trying to measure? So what I'd really love you to do is, you know, so taking on that kind of the challenge that Ian is putting out to the market, in what you're trying to do, what are you trying to measure in terms of impact in the work that you're doing? And what kind of support do you need to measure that? So what is it that you're trying to measure in the impact? What is the impact that you're trying to do? How are you trying to measure it? And what support do you need to do that? We're going to do a quick breakout right now, 10 minutes. When everyone comes back, we're going to dive straight in to Jan from BASF talking about the collaborative economies and how do we hustle to, you know, and work with large organizations such as BASF and other global giants to make the SDGs a success. So right now, is everyone clear on the question we're asking? Mm-hmm. Anthony, would you love to do your magic?
Vlad?
You get a pause record just for the moment. Oh, everyone's gone.
Our breakout rooms will end in 50 seconds.
Super.
So are there any more breakouts still to come?
I think we won't have any more time, no. I think this conversation will probably take us to the end.
So towards the end, let's let people know, and I'm happy to do it, to expect some contact from Christine and or Maurice, and we'll let them know, obviously, that will involve them in the build up to the sustainability event.
That's right. That's right. And I'll bring this up as we get into it. Yeah. I think that's really good. Excellent. Hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
Is this team one?
I don't know what
Yes,
we are.
of course it is.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
didn't
That's the
break
right
over
answer.
in four, but we're definitely team one.
How are you, El?
That was a
Anthony.
good-
How are you?
Terrific, thanks.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. This is where the action happens. And so we've been in the breakout. Anthony and I have been busily trying to work out why Zoom has slightly broken, and those who left trying to get back in, there's about 8 people, can't get back in. So, and we couldn't solve it. So we had 2 options: either one, kind of reset this and get everyone to log back in, but then with the risk that nobody can get back in, or we continue and just record it and just share it with everyone, which we're going to do anyway. So Jan, I do apologize. There's about 8 people who were, let us back in. We want to hear it. And it's like, I'm really sorry, we can't. So lucky for us, recording does work. Let's assume that it will be brilliant. And yeah, just want to welcome everyone back. Just with a hands up, who found that session with Ian and then the conversation about measurement really rewarding? Hands up.
Useful.
Really useful. And what's interesting here is that we work diligently and actively throughout the month, making sure that things are progressing, introductions and working with the community. And the members particularly get a lot of value. Ian with introductions, presentations, and so forth. But same with the others that are there. Where I guess I'm trying to go with this comment here is that the Sustainability Hub, this Net Zero 2030 Hub, is not just about the work we're doing to get action. We also focus on a big education and connection event that we run a couple of times a year. And we have another one coming towards the end of August, which I think the dates are still being finalized. And so that Sustainability Forum, Ian is one of the key contributors, has been for quite a while, and there are other advisors that are here, and if we couldn't make it today as well, working, very hard behind the scenes to create an event that is really broad in its ability to educate, but also closely linked with impact in the different areas of, in the different focuses of the SDGs. And I mention this almost as a bit of a segue to the introduction to Jan, because when we talk about impact, we're tightly aligned, with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I've asked Jan to speak to this community about something that we see in this forum that happens twice a year, and also for many of the members and participants in the community, how do you access the large organizations, those that are doing significant pieces of work, programs of work around the world, such as BASF, and how do you really get involved in achieving that collaboration together, regardless of your size or regardless of specifically where you are in the journey? What do you need? How does it work? What are these organizations looking for? So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jan, and thank you so much for participating. Our particular topic, but I know there's going to be a broad conversation, is going to be around how do we create collaborative economy that hustles to achieve the SDGs, right? Really straightforward, fairly broad. And I know that Jan is going to, leave us all with some incredible impressions. Can I make you the presenter, Jan? So,
okay.
Vlad, I can tell from Jan's accent that he's 5th generation Aussie, but I don't know a lot more about Jan's background.
And Anthony, before we do, you just need to, I think because you're the host, you need to make Jan co-host so he can present.
Sure.
If you make me the presenter, I can tell you a little bit about myself. With my accent, I seem to have many people guessing where I'm actually from. I'm not going to repeat that guessing game here. I'm German. I was born in Berlin. I'm 48 years old. I was actually born in East Berlin, so that's oftentimes a very interesting talking point for people, because I've lived through the communist times of Eastern Germany up until I was 17. So I have a relatively good impression of what life was like then, and I really enjoyed the freedom of moving around the world when the wall came down. I'm going to share my screen here. I moved to Australia in 2006 and worked through a few roles here. I literally came with a container, a wife and a child, found a job here pretty easily, and after a couple of years ended up working for BASF. They were advertising for a role at the time that I was really, really interested in, and was really, really bizarre when I came to Australia to see how recruitment works here. You don't go to the companies directly. You have to go through an agency, and the agency would never tell you who you're actually applying for a job with. They'd all mask that and filter first. And BASF had an ad out that actually said, "We are BASF and we are looking for this sort of role." And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. If I as a German could work for a German company, but here in Australia, that should be quite interesting. So I've been with BASF now since 2008. The longest role I've ever held with professionally with any company. And I tell you, the reason I'm there is not because I'm a chemist. I'm not a chemist. I'm a trained chef. It's not that that I stand for everything that BASF represents necessarily in the world. There are many things in our portfolio where I go, I'm not sure whether I like this chemistry so much. But there's so many opportunities for individuals to move around, learn, engage, work on absolutely fascinating projects. I think that's what's come out in the conversation with Vlad as well. So that's what's brought me to this place today. And I'm going to see if I get this right with the presentation mode, and you tell me if you can see this properly.
We can. Yep, perfect.
Yeah. So the title I've given this is an inside out and outside in conversation about sustainability, the Sustainable Development Goals and progressive industrial environmentalism in manufacturing. And it's important that it is about manufacturing because we make stuff, physical things. And our products go into, you could say, virtually any of the products that you're surrounded with today. The desk you're sitting at, the telephone you're holding, the glasses, the specs you wear, the paints on your wall, the carpet under your feet, the cars you drive when you go to your next appointment. Everything has chemicals in it. Obviously, everything has chemistry that is required to make these things work. And BASF is a really large chemical company that has a very broad portfolio. And I'll touch a little bit on that, because it puts us in a very, very unique position. What you see here, the picture I've put on the first slide, this is our global head office. It's located in Germany, in the heart of Germany, between Frankfurt and Heidelberg. So anyone who's been to Germany and knows a little bit about geography, that's where you're looking. The place is called Ludwigshafen. It can be a bit of a tongue twister for anyone who doesn't speak German. It's on the River Rhine, so that's the river that you see. Everything in this picture is BASF. It's about a 10 square kilometer facility that has about 200 different chemical plants that are all interconnected. And that concept that BASF uses there, we refer to it as the German word Verbund, which means a collaborative network of some sort, in this case for plants that are connected via pipelines to reduce the logistics required to move product from A to B to C. We operate a couple of crackers in there that crack crude oil. From there, everything flows into the various plants, and off product from one plant becomes an input for another plant. In theory, what we want to see is that only a drop of water comes out at the end of the day. Everything else has been used. So that's the concept. We have a few of those plants around the world, but not at this scale. At this size, this site here, you have 30,000 people work. 20 years ago, it was 50,000 people. So through restructuring, digitalization, and so forth, roles have become redundant, but it is still a $30,000 people site, the biggest chemical site in the world. And it is really quite phenomenal to see and experience. What's interesting, and I'm not sure whether I need to click anything here to have my mouse show. Hang on, sorry, I meant to go back. I'm not sure how I can, how do I show my mouse here? Can you see my mouse hover on the screen? No, I can't, right?
Not really, no. It came up from
laser pointer tool. Okay, here. So back here, this is residential area. So we are under particularly heavy restrictions to make sure that our emissions, anything that comes out the stack, is clean and doesn't impact the surroundings. So on the other side of the river is a city called Mannheim with a few 100,000 inhabitants. We have some of the strictest technologies in place to reduce our emissions from that site to the areas outside. And it's something that drives a lot of our activities in Germany, in engagement with society at large, politicians, governments, etc., to make sure that our license to operate, our social license, is intact. People are happy to not just work there, but live right next door to a site like this. And the value we create for our shareholders and for our staff, of course, is shared with the society, with people like you and I, who have a choice with the products we purchase, where we talked about before. Knowing the carbon footprint of products that you want to buy in the supermarket is something that we support. We have a commitment to quantify the carbon footprint of every single product that BASF has in the portfolio. It is something that is so easily said, and it is something that is so easily expected by governments and by consumers. And I can't begin to explain to you how difficult it is to come with a figure that is accurate and steeped in reality, to tell you what is the carbon footprint of a product that we sell and that then goes into the market, that is turned into products that we find in the supermarket. So there's a lot of complexity behind these simple concepts that come up in conversations, and that is one of the reasons why Vlad and I have been, as we go grab a coffee and go for walks, come to a conversation like this to say, okay, how can a company who manufactures product, who has an enormously large carbon footprint ourselves, how can a company like this communicate with the rest of the world adequately to make sure that what we do and how chemistry really works in practice, in reality, for the world that we know, what's the good of it? How can you tweak it? How can you make it better? What are the ideas that surround us everywhere that we should listen to, that we need to know about, that we could also support? So this is all going to come out in the next few slides. I've got a few things here that I just grabbed off the internet to give everyone a bit of an impression of here how big BASF is, a 60 billion euro enterprise revenue per annum, with a EBIT of about 10%. We invest heavily and have been investing heavily in reducing our environmental footprint through a whole variety of measures. So the latest example here was for one of those Verbund sites that we're currently building in Shenyang, in China. A 10 billion euro investment will be 100% renewable electricity that we use there. For the big site that we have there in Germany, we are now working with an engineering company like Siemens to add electrolyzers and use renewable energy basically to drive those electrolyzers to then create the power that we need to operate our plants. You can look through this here to get a bit of an impression of where we're spending our money and what we're doing. An interesting one that I found just last night, this one here is in German, unfortunately. We have the German Chancellor Angela Merkel spend an hour with our staff next week So I'll be dialing in for that. It just to show the clout that a large manufacturing company like BASF has with governments. That you know, our chancellor spends her time talking to BASF. Products that you might know yourself, Adidas here as an example, 100% recyclable materials developed with BASF. This shoe is 100% recycled material, so it's made from recycled materials, can be recycled again at some point in time when it falls apart. So a lot of things where we push for relevant innovation to reduce our carbon footprint, to be more environmentally friendly than a size or a company of the size is by default. An interesting fact that I learned recently, BASF alone in Germany produces between 1% and 2% of the carbon emissions of Germany. BASF alone. This is a phenomenal number if you think about you know, the industrial operations in Germany and the 80 million people that live there, and our company alone is responsible for 1% to 2% of the carbon emissions. So we have a huge task, obviously, to reduce that. We have a huge task in communicating why we are in this position as the chemical industry, why we are in a position to also develop solutions for these challenges, because you almost can't operate in a much more efficient way if you're making chemicals than the way we have put this Verbundsite together, right? But still a huge challenge. And it's going to be interesting how we proceed there. And it's just, here's something, BASF Forward, because Vlad and I were talking about, well, okay, well, what is BASF doing that supports new ideas that are sprouting up everywhere in the world? We have two entities, one on the left, BASF New Business, that integrates new business concepts and new products into our portfolio that aren't traditional territory for BASF. So we're trying new things there. Two examples given there: 3D printing, where we make the polymers basically that the 3D printers use. So that's a business that BASF is trialing out, and e-power management, meaning electricity, where we trying to get into the market of building utility-sized, 20-foot container-sized batteries that can be used for long duration charge and discharge. We are effectively bringing these into Australia even because we want to help the mines, for example, to electrify or use renewable energy to run the operations. And they need batteries, of course, because the sun goes down in the evening and the wind doesn't always blow. So they need batteries to store electricity. And we believe that we have a solution that can play a part there. But perhaps more importantly to anyone else in the room here, we also have a venture capital entity. So people with clever ideas that convince BASF that that's worth spending some money on. There's an evergreen fund available of 250 million euros. I'd be very keen to work with inventors and entities here in Australia to tap into that fund, because it is available. And it's not something that we've done so far, but I want to bring that out. I want to talk about this more, and I want to hear people's interest and ideas around that. So that's something where the external world can tap into BASF and guide us a little bit where the future lies. On the next slide here, I just want to come back to one point when we talk about sustainability. In my view, terminology like sustainability has become a fashion word in recent years. It's certainly become a lot more mainstream in recent years than I can remember. But it's interesting to note that BASF has had a sustainability strategy in place for over 25 years. So it's a topic that, even though it wasn't communicated so everyone outside of BASF understood, perhaps, it has had a focus for our company for many years. Understanding this the need to operate in a sustainable fashion, to focus on products that are more sustainable now and in the future than the ones that we produced before. So this has been around for quite some time. I recall in 2008 when I joined BASF, these topics were coming up on a very, very regular basis. Sustainable development to create a value is a conversation that within BASF has existed for many, many years. And I'm actually quite proud of it. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm still with this company after so many years, because it is something where I go, my value system is reflected in what I see the corporate culture stands for. And I couldn't resist but put this person's picture in here as well. He's in our R&D team looking at our carbon management solutions. And he is nitpicking a little bit here, because when we talk about decarbonization, right? And if we talk about decarbonization of the chemical industry, he's pointing out quite rightly that 50% of our products are carbon. There cannot be a decarbonized chemical industry. What we can do is we can make sure that wherever emissions are concerned, wherever power and energy is concerned, that we use renewables, right? So there's a decarbonization of our footprint in that sense, but you can't talk about decarbonization of the chemical industry because carbon is such an integral part of chemistry, right? So it's just quite interesting to really have that splitting of words here to make sure that the meaning is understood, because the solutions to our problems are complex. They're not easy. And I think this needs to be understood. The circle I've got here, this is really something that we're trying to put into our messaging, that the concept that we call chem cycling is something that we're bringing into the whole portfolio definition within BASF, where new feedstocks are brought into our chemistries that can be recycled and brought back into the plant. There's ideally no waste. So in the breakout group, we talked about plastic waste floating around the ocean, and people getting upset about that. And BASF is saying, bring that plastic back, don't throw it out. This is a resource, we need this. We have technologies, there are companies out there that can use pyrolysis to turn this plastic back into useful raw materials that we can use. We want this, it is not waste. Don't talk of it as waste. It is a resource. Don't throw it out. Don't burn it, incinerate, try and get rid of it. Give it back. We need it. Okay. So it's one of those complexities that we see where we talk with passion about the chemistry and how things need to work to make it work and make it work economically, that in the public mind and oftentimes in the media are just displayed and talked about in ways that are just not right, because they're not understood well enough. Okay, so that's something that I wanted to bring into the conversation. And just a little bit here on BASF in Australia. You see here the range of products or the range of industries that we service. I just grabbed 3 examples because they're indicative of where our big business lies here in Australia. One is all around the mining industry. So a lot of our products go into the mining industry to help miners separate rock and soil from the minerals, essentially, and the process plants that they need to then further refine. We operate pink lakes over in Western Australia to harvest algae, which contain beta-carotene, which we process here at a plant in Australia, in Melbourne. They're super popular with tourists. They want to see them because they're just so unusual. They were used here in a photo shoot with Maya some years ago. So really pretty to look at. I always like this example because this is algae. This is green. The algae grow all year round, and we'll harvest them. So it's the most natural chemical you can think of. It's chemistry. Just like anything else is chemistry, this is also chemistry. So for us, there's really no good or bad chemistry, what molecules you process. It's all about how you do it respectfully, and with the, with as little waste as possible. And the last example here is a farm site that we operate to help agronomists around Australia and help farmers around Australia to see the effect of using certain products that we have in our portfolio versus using other products or using no products. This is in a push to digitalize, like Ian Jones was talking about, digitalizing the Australian farming industry. This is one of those examples. This is a live website. You get 24-hour streaming of the conditions on site. You can see exactly what is happening on the ground to convince yourself how the products are working under the various conditions. So this is a big market for BASF, agricultural products, herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, all the stuff that people typically say, oh, I don't want that in my food. That's all nasty. That is not something that I really buy into. Unfortunately, we have things like the mouse plague going through the country. We had the wasp plague in years before, and it's not something that will just naturally go away. People need to deal with it, and chemistry comes into dealing with these things. And the same with herbicides and fungicides. There are robust use cases there where chemicals play a part, and it's a question of how well is the chemistry understood and how is it applied. We want to make sure that when farmers apply herbicides, for argument's sake, they don't use too little because they want to save, because then it's not effective. We also don't want them too much because then it's not good for the soil, it's not good for the yield either. So it's a lot about the education of how the chemistry works at their farm, the soils, the crop that they're planting. So it's a lot about having that dialogue, having that conversation, making sure that as a chemical company, we understand what's happening in the society, what's happening on the ground, what do people need, what do markets need, and likewise for us to explain adequately well what is it that we know that we do that is of benefit to our customers, to the markets, to society, to regulators, et cetera, et cetera. The problem statement I came up with essentially is because of the size of a global manufacturing business like ours, we have access to networks, governments, funds that other companies typically don't. Smaller companies typically don't. We have a lot of freedoms in funneling our money in different ways than governments. Obviously, governments are working for a country. A multinational corporation chooses where it spends its money, obviously, right? We have a huge role to play, some of which we play out of our own interest, out of our own volition and ideas that we come up with, and things that we want to push and we are pushing with our R&D budgets and bringing products to the market. But at the same time, we don't solve any of the world's problems by ourselves, right? We need to engage with people like here in the room to hear what are the problems you're facing, what are the challenges you're facing, what are the good ideas that you have or that you've heard about that need funding or that need connecting, that need some additional R&D, that need some know-how on how do you commercialize something, how do you bring your product from A to B, where we have expertise, we have access, we have means to do a lot of things if we get the right dialogue happen. If we hear about things that we can discuss and agree to, that we can support. There's a lot that a manufacturing business can do, right? I mean, everyone in politics loves to talk about manufacturing because it's tangible. It's put people into jobs. All the governments around the world, all they ever talk about when they create jobs, they want to see plants being built and people given jobs. They hardly ever say, go to a company and say, please build me another 10,000 jobs in finance, but because it's just not tangible enough. So they all talk about something more related to manufacturing. So there's a lot of attention that we get there to work with governments and legislators. Obviously, we make investment decisions that are driven by what we believe in, what our customers believe in, what rules and regulations are in place that force or endure us, and entice us to go a certain way. And all this now put together, right, in the conversations with Vlad, like I said, there's just so much going on. There's so much going on in the world. There's so much going on within BSF. There's so many technologies, so many markets that we're touching, so many ideas that we have that we fund, and so much money that we also make available to others to fund their ideas. So the question is, how do we hustle towards the sustainable development goals with the creative collaborative economy, and how to leverage companies like BSF? I'm not saying just BSF. Obviously, there's so many other companies, but I'm representing BSF in here today just to have that conversation with everyone in the room. Say, okay, what do you hear and see, and what I've talked about, what I'm presenting, that makes you think, I wonder if a person I know, or I wonder if an idea that's been floating around is worthwhile getting out of the drawer again. So I heard Ian Jones before talk about a couple of topics where I go, I definitely must talk to him after this session. John Engelin in the breakout room, he was mentioning a white paper that he's drafted. I definitely want to see that. It definitely sounds like something. Hey, here we could do something. I'm just really curious to have a conversation with everybody around this. I have no specific goal that I'm trying to achieve. I have no specific outcome in mind. I just want to make sure that as a large manufacturing business with so much power and capabilities, we engage with the community in ways that aren't able through this network. So I hope I didn't bore any of you too much. I'll shut up now and give it back to Vlad and follow whatever process happens from here.
That's awesome, Jan. And it's exactly where we wanted to get to with this conversation, which is knowing and seeing how a huge manufacturing organization like this is driven to look at, impact, sustainability, emissions, energy, recycling. That was an incredible piece. Carbon footprint. I'd like to open it up to the group here. What sort of questions has this raised for you? What sort of concerns? What sort of things would you like to put on the table? I've got a list of questions for you, which I'm kind of really keen to jump into, but this is not my forum. So just go ahead. If you want to unmute yourself and ask, please just go ahead.
I think it's fantastic, Jan, and people, and I think that point about carbon is necessary, absolutely necessary, and it's the stuff of life, right? So I think that there is a danger in people's minds that chemicals are bad, and I think that's a global educational issue, right? But the thing is that my understanding is that the industry is doing fantastic stuff with regard to converting A to B, and one of those A to Bs is, for example, doing nitrogen fertilizers, for example. That can be in the future change from cracking fossil fuel to hydrogen and nitrogen from the air, essentially, right? And so there's we definitely need the chemical industry, on the plate and doing their thing. So I think that BASF have the scale that is required. If you actually work out, for example, how much hydrogen is required to just run transport, if you want to do that, it is huge, absolutely huge. I mean, it's mind-boggling in its scale. So whatever happens, guys, it has to have the scale, and you need big companies to be able to develop that scale. That's all I've got to say. So,
fair comment, exactly right. And Jan, I would love to ask as well. Like, so if we're looking at chemistry, I mean, you mentioned pyrolysis especially, and that's just been a hot topic here. And I'll probably say every second day I've got a conversation about some sort of form of recycling, and pyrolysis is very common. People are talking about all over the world. How are you engaging? So all of these organizations, dozens and dozens, right, looking and trying to set up projects, demonstration projects. how do they get involved, like with BASF, or what's the interest of BASF in those sort of projects? I mean, I know there's a few people on this call as well who are doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, good one. Pyrolysis is definitely a huge topic. Getting plastic back into the loop. We have invested in companies that have developed specific processes to recycle particular types of plastic. Some easy ones are like car tires. There are mountains of car tires around. You can shred them up, and you can ultimately use a pyrolysis process to turn it back into oils that we can then buy off these companies. For example, we also have our own chemical solutions for various pyrolysis applications. It's extremely complicated when you actually start dealing with it, because the plastic that you get back is typically not pristine. It's soiled, or it's been exposed to the elements for a long time. So there you need actually a lot of other chemicals to separate all the molecules that you want to harvest from the waste plastic, right? To then have a high quality input raw material from that recycled plastic again. So you got to mechanically sort and separate, and then you got to start treating it. And because of the many different types of plastics we have, it's not one size fits all. So there are multiple different processes. There's so many smart brains around the world that have come up with ideas how this could work, who then come to companies like BASF and say, help me commercialize this. We think this is a great idea. And then we look around and say, well, actually, this has been done over there already. We are already committed to this partner. Sorry, we can't help you here. There's only so much we can do. Or they go, here's something new. We want to try that. And we go, you know what? We tried that 5 years ago. We know there are some hurdles there. We don't want to engage in that. Then there are others that come and say, oh, actually, this is a great idea. Yeah, we buy into this, and we support them through our venture capital company, or we take out a stake in a company to support their business and buy a product off them, for example. There are various ways that we get engaged. It is unfortunate that the devil is always in the details. So it really depends on what ways someone has invented to do good. What's the overlap there with chemistry? Are we purely a facilitator? Is our portfolio required to actually help do something? Is the process that someone has invented scalable? Because some things work beautifully in the small scale, but as soon as you try and bring this to a commercially relevant size, you run into problems that in the small scale you couldn't foresee. So that's why, unfortunately, oftentimes even good ideas don't necessarily fly. Even ideas that start flying, it's slower than desired.
It's always slower. In chemistry it is. And I won't hold the floor because I've got lots of questions, and I know that we're sort of running out of time. So Julie, you had your hand up as well. I can ask more questions a bit later. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, fantastic. Lots to think about. I was just thinking about how have you approached the circular economy issue? Because the linear economy, as we all know, is no longer sustainable. Yeah. You're a chemical company, Jan. So you have quite a role that you could play to help customers becoming circular. So what's your view on that?
So the circular economy is not the problem, but the solution, right?
Yeah, no, it's not a problem. I didn't say it was a problem. The problem is the linear economy.
I know, I'm just teasing. We are all for this, and I can give you a very practical example. In Australia, we bring our products from overseas because we have to. Once they're no longer used in the process, I would love to recycle them, but it's not economically feasible to send them back to Europe, right? I have to do something here. I have to be able to recycle in Australia. There's no industry there. There's no industry there. So I'm literally talking to a couple of universities and a couple of engineering companies who also quite like the idea, and we want to try this out for some of the catalyst products that I'm specifically selling to mining companies who otherwise stockpile it because they have the space. They don't like to have it there, but they have the space. So they postpone dealing with the problem until some time when either regulations are there or it becomes a unsustainable way of handling it on site. We are all for recycling. We want everything back if we can. In Australia, because of our remoteness, and often in many cases, it is a particular challenge, and there's just not enough of the right sort of industry in place to just segue into it, right? But we're definitely all for this. We have a process we call ChemCycling. So I can send you some information on that. But it's a huge program within BASF that extends the recycling and how people understand it into then ChemCycling as well. Because like I said before, we can sell more chemicals in a recycling environment, in a recycling economy, than right now, because you need so many chemicals to pull the molecules apart again and separate them and bring them back into a reusable format. That this is actually a very positive business model for BASF. So we are definitely for it.
That's awesome. It's really good. And I think the conversation, because I mean, I know a lot of people have to leave. We promised everybody that 5:30 we would wrap up. So I think there's going to be a lot of conversations around the recycling, and post this aired, Jan. Are you happy for people to get in touch with you and reach out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And Jan's details.
Everyone, bring your kids, and we'll teach them something about chemistry along the way. No problem.
That's awesome. You say this, but my kids are on their way. This is school holidays. They're going to come and have a look. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And I think that's, it's given a lot of people, that the understanding of what's possible at a large scale, because it's very daunting, I think, for many doing these deep developments to actually have a conversation with some of the large manufacturers. And I think this just goes to show how if you look and scratch and meet the right people, that there's real access and a desire, to build out, even with organizations that are fairly small, but still testing and pushing.
Blood, in 15 minutes, we haven't even scratched the surface. So anyone has any questions after the session, get in touch.
Yeah, and I've shared your details.
I look forward.
The LinkedIn details are there too. So I know people need to drop off. So I wanted to just again, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. We've got another session on the Monday evening, Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is at 6 p.m. because we've got quite a few people in Asia and Europe that will make this morning. Helene, who's on the call here, she's going to be having that conversation about blue carbon. That's going to be incredible. I think it's, it flows on from the conversations we're having, because, it's all combination of, changing thinking, chemistry, working together, collaboration. So I just feel that, in the last couple of months, we've had incredible progress. So, and I thank everybody who's here and who could make it. We will also send out the dates for the next month's session in July, so the two. So, but they're all locked in right now. We'll get the invites out earlier as we get our systems sorted. So, any final comments before we bring this to a close? And you're welcome to stay on and chat for a bit longer if you need.
Thanks, Vlad. Thanks all.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you so much.
Well done, Vlad. Another winner.
All right, thanks, Julie. It was great. So consider this a soft close. Anthony's had to quickly rush off and take care of his daughter. So the session is recording, continues. I'm not sure if I know how to turn the recording off, but feel free to drop off or stay on for a few minutes.
I gotta go. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you, everyone. Okay, Julie, you and I, we've got a catch up today.
Harry, I was just, when's that?
I think it's 4 o'clock. Anthony,
4 o'clock, that's it, yeah.
Anthony, did you want to turn the recording off while you're there?
Yeah, sure.